Grand Rising, everyone. This is Artist of Truth coming to you today with another vlog entry. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. As you can see, the topic is emotional men. Alright, so let's get into that. How should I start this off? For those who don't know, I'm very, very passionate. I'm very passionate about certain topics, about issues, situations. I'm very, very passionate about it. And I was even told that, I was told by a few of my male constituents that I'm very, very emotional. And I've heard women say, I've heard black women say the same thing. And, I find that very, very puzzling that when it comes to men of color, we are not allowed, we are not allowed to speak freely about how we feel. Once again, it all depends on the situation. But it appears that when it comes to men, men of color, we have some sort of theory that if you are expressing yourself on that emotional level, if you show any signs of emotion, then you are deemed weak. You are some sort of crybaby, or you're too emotional. And I found that to be one of the most shallow-minded, ignorant shit ever to say, because that type of behavior is destructive. To tell someone, to tell a male, young and older, that you shouldn't be you shouldn't be emotional. And a few days ago, I got into a real heated conversation with some sisters about it. One of the sisters was talking about how, the guy that she was with, for 5 or 6 years, she was saying that he was very, very emotional. I was like, was that a bad thing? And she was like, for me, yeah, because he just seemed weak. And I was like, well, because he was, being emotional. She was like, yeah, he cried, he cried when, I think, what was it she was saying? He was, shedding tears at, at his mother's wedding. And she saw that as like, what you crying for, And he was like, I'm happy. She was like, well, you could be happy without shedding tears. She was like, it didn't seem masculine to her. And I was like, you ever heard of, tears of joy, tears of happiness? And she was like, yeah. She's like, but this big grown 6'3" dude is shedding tears because his mom is getting married. And, I'm looking like, he's happy for her. I was like, and you feel like that's showing a sign of weakness. I was like, at any other time, has he shown any signs of weakness? She was like, no. He's very strong. He's physically strong, mentally strong, and he knows what he wants, and he works towards that. So I'm listening to what she's saying, but I'm scratching my head because I'm like, you're saying that to you that's weak, and it I tried breaking it down for her, but of course, even when you break shit down for, you break shit down for people, a lot of times they are so well conditioned, it's like it's no way of getting, it's no way of getting the point across to them. It's, get this AC going, I'm sorry about that. Um, it's, it's almost like you're talking to a brick wall. You feel me? So, between her and, in her situation and another young lady who was single, she even said the same thing. I never want to see my man in an emotional state. It shows a sign of weakness. I was like, so if there's something heavy on his mind and it's causing a disturbance within his being, you're telling me that he shouldn't be open with you about it. He shouldn't communicate with you about it. And, in one sense, she was saying, yeah, he can. But then in another sense, she was saying no, because she felt like that's a sign of weakness. And, it was like just listening to the both of them. It just came off to me as both individuals are very, very weak-minded to think that a man should not be emotional. He should not express himself. And I feel like, it was necessary for me to put this video up to even talk about it. And this is the issue when it comes to the black community. We have been conditioned and taught by either our parents, male or female, or even other siblings, that we shouldn't show emotion. Strong men don't show emotion. And I'm here to tell you all, that's a flock of shit. Because whoever came up with that theory did not honestly think everything through when they made that stupid ass statement. I was like, you can be emotional. I'm emotional. And there's been a few videos that I've done that I was very, very extremely passionate about what I was talking about, to the extent where, I shed a couple of tears. Yeah, I did. I shed tears because I see greater potential in my brothers than I do anyone else. And I'm passionate about that. There's nothing weak about it. Brothers, let me explain something to you. It's nothing weak about expressing yourself and what you feel and what you think. I understand there are some women out there, they feel like that's weak. Hey, that's cool. You keep operating with that weak-minded mentality, and then you'll find yourself by yourself. Because a man's going to feel like, damn, I can't emotionally express myself to my partner the way I need to. I can't do that. It's like, I can't do that with you. And if a man starts to feel as though he cannot express himself with you, it's one of two things going to happen. Either he's going to leave you alone, or he's going to talk to another woman that's going to allow him to be 100% himself. Now, I talk about this because I speak from experience. I've went through that phase before. I've been through that phase where, I was told by my own mom, boy, what you crying for? So, I'm like, huh? I'm hurting. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I was told that by my own mom, not realizing that I had to find my own way, because what some people do not quite understand, especially women, that we cannot continue to keep these bottled up feelings forever. Pressure bursts pipes. And if you continuously fill a balloon full of water, at some point that balloon is going to pop. Then you got a whole big mess right there. And you got some women out there that can't, you got some women out there in the world, they can't take that. They're not ready for that smoke. They do a whole lot of talking, but when the shit really hits the fan, they run. They bail. I've had that happen to me as well. And if you don't know, take my advice. If you think for 1 minute that a man expressing how he feels about you, about a particular situation, and it upsets him, or it weakens him emotionally to the extent where he breaks down, that does not mean that he is less of a man. Whoever the fuck gave you that theory, they dead to this world. They don't know what the fuck they talking about. They got life ass backwards, just like a lot of shit in this world. And if you're willing, as a woman, ladies, if you're willing to look a man in his face and tell him that expressing himself, oh, that you just too emotional, you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, then when you need him to have that same compassion and be sensitive to your feelings and to your needs, and he's not that for you, that's because you just told him. You just told him not too long ago. It's weak, right? It's weak for him to be emotional. He could throw that right back at you. It's like, well, shit, hey, okay, what you want me to do? Well, console me. No, he's not going to do that because he's already been conditioned not to show emotions. So if he can't show emotions for his own self, because what a lot of ladies fail to understand is the man comes first. Any man that you meet, he has to put himself first before he can make you his world. If he's fucked up and he hasn't gotten his mind and his heart, if those things are not together, he can never ever be right for you. Simple. I can't think of any other way to really break it down for the women to understand this about us. And I tell anyone, I'm not going to muffle or bury my feelings for no damn body. Because how I feel about certain things, you're going to hear it. If you don't want to hear it, I'm gonna talk to someone who's going to listen. You might not like it, but I'd be like, well, shit, that's your fault because you didn't want to hear it. And I'm not going to suppress it because my health and my well-being is on the line. Some men have a tendency, they'll commit suicide. Some will drink. Some will take pills in some way of coping with what they're feeling. But if you don't know exactly, if you're telling the man that, hey, I'm going to need you to man up, you setting yourself up for a ticking time bomb. But in the same sense, you cannot expect that man to be sensitive towards your feelings because he's not being sensitive towards his own. So in the meantime, in between time, y'all stay, y'all have a great day and be safe out there. All right. One love.